Hello everyone, my name is Julia. It's NAMM 2020 and next to me there's sitting the beautiful Stu Hamm. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It is so awesome. I first saw you 2 years ago, like live, in Mannheim at Guitar Summit. And then I watched a lot of videos of you on YouTube.
Wait, there are videos of me on YouTube?
Oh, yeah, quite a lot. And there's one video I'm totally into. It's like in 2000, I think, so like almost 20 years ago. And you played the sonata, Beethoven sonata, as a solo. And normally I don't like the tapping sound so much, but I don't know what you're doing. The sound is just so clear, like on a piano. Maybe you just can talk a little bit about that. Also, you had the red bass. I don't know which bass it was. Can you remember? It was like a jazz pickup and then in addition a P bass pickup in the middle. So what is your sound or your setup when you played like this?
Well, that red bass you saw was many years ago. When I came to one of my first NAMM shows, there was a bass called a Kubicki X Factor bass. I don't know if you remember those, but they had a really cool headstock on them where you had the tuning pegs were down here. So it was like a classical bass with a C extension. So you put the ball of the string here, there was a capo and then 2 extra frets. So you would hit the capo and you would have an open D.
Oh, nice.
And you could fret the E flat, fret the E, and then you could capo it at the E. And so since then, when I put a hip shot on my basses to get down to D, you have to play octaves like minor sevenths. Right, which is in the old, with the Kubicki or classical bass, that have the C extensions, you can still finger it the same. So I was playing those basses, and they're really great basses. I helped popularize them, but they sort of have a very tweaky sound, like an alembic, that was very good for when I was sort of developing the tapping technique. But when I was playing with Joe Satriani, it didn't really fit in a band situation, because if you go into a recording studio, people want like a J bass or a P bass sound.
Yes, I know.
So I had the third pickup put in there. And then Fender ended up buying Kubicki, and then we decided to make the first Fender signature bass, which is the Stu Hamm Urge bass. And that was the bass with the 2 J pickups and the P bass in the middle. That was the red bass you saw.
Nice, okay, really nice. Because I think it's totally different if you play like solo bass or you play in a band. So how do you handle this with your setup or even with your tone? Because first you played with the band and then you played alone.
Well, you see, I come from a completely different world. I mean, the electric bass is barely over 70 years old. And when I got my first bass in 1973, there were literally like 2 people who slapped the bass. And I saw Larry Graham, and I was living in a small town, and I drove to a store in the woods in Vermont, and I picked a bass up off the wall, and I went, and the guy thought I was trying to break the bass and had me kicked out of the store, right? So I was just around when all these new John Entwistle and Chris Squire, and then here comes Stanley Clark, and here comes Jocko. The bass world was just evolving. So I played piano for years and years, and I'm a big Glenn Gould fanatic. And when I was playing with Steve Vai, who I met at college, and we were doing songs like Eruption, where there's hammer-ons. But if you think about it, so then instead of taking 2 notes to play it, one to fret it and one to strike it, if you just tap down on it, it leaves your other hand free to do other things. Right?
You've got a low action?
That can't be too low. If the action is too low, then you don't get any sustain, and there won't be any resistance. Right now, yes, it's a little low because I travel a lot, and it's a very thin neck. This is a prototype from my signature bass from Warwick. I have a great builder there, Marcus Spangler. So this has 2 silicon truss rods that aren't movable but keep the thin neck from moving around too much. But I have my truss rod adjuster with me in my back pocket. I'm changing it all the time. But so then so then I tried to work out some of my piano pieces on the bass as a Gershwin prelude that I could play, but I couldn't play the middle part until I realized you could start tapping it. And then I started working on, Bach pieces like Prelude and C.
Yes, yeah.
And the great thing is that it really helped me visualize harmony on a different pattern. Because Prelude and C, look, there's C.
I know.
There's C, right?
Yeah.
So you can visualize in a much more pianistic way harmony on the fretboard.
Yeah.
And as far as sound, well, sound's in your fingers.
Okay.
And to play tapping music like that, you have to have complete control over it, which means there's pieces that I've been working on since 1980 that I just can't play well enough to play it live, because to play music, you have to use phrasing and dynamics, and unless you have complete control of it, you can't play it that way.
Yeah, that's true. So what is your repertoire, your classic? Because I have seen a lot of piano things you did, and I think it's also at some point you get stuck because it doesn't sound so well on the bass than on piano.
I try to play lots of different things, but you're right. In adapting, pieces for the bass. Number one, I mean, it's really presumptuous to transpose a piece Bach wrote.
Mm-hmm. I know.
I mean, there are people that are just have, especially, some Austrians and Germans are very vocal about their opinions. And they've let me know that they don't think it's a good idea for me to play Bach or Beethoven on an electric bass guitar. They think it's sacrilege, right? So in the Moonlight Sonata, there's a couple, the diminished run in the middle, there's just not enough room. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been trying to play Clair de Lune forever, and it just doesn't sound good. There's a bunch of Debussy pieces. The Children's Corner, I can play a few of them. Uh-huh. The Snowflakes Are Dancing, Little Shepherd. Some of them just aren't possible. And for me personally, then I worry about changing it too much. But then there are now people like Vikingur Olafsson and a lot of stuff that Deutsche Grammophon doing, that they're really, Olafur Arnolds, they get these producers to produce classical music in a whole new way, to get rid of just the strict way that people, the old-fashioned way. So that leaves more room for it, So hopefully people will be more open. But I tried it, and some songs work and sound good, and others don't.
Yeah. I could tell. I used to play cello, and I was at the university in Vienna, and I had a really, really old-fashioned. I mean, he was a very good teacher. Yeah. And we also played the cello sonata, and he said, "No, this is the way you have to play it, like with every." I mean, he was taught like that, so that I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the world is changing. It used to be such a difference. Like when before I went to Berklee College of Music, there was also the New England Conservatory that had a classical school with a sort of avant-garde jazz program, and the difference between classical musicians and jazz musicians was really, really wide. And a lot of classical musicians think that like playing a blues is easy, and it sounds terrible. Because there's an art to playing a blues,
exactly. Yeah.
But I know a bunch of guys. A friend of mine's a bass player, in the LA Phil, David Allen Moore, and he's a great classical player, but he also understands jazz and pop and fusion and world music, and so there are a lot more musicians that are, not being caught in by musical boundaries.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Which brings me to the next question. I mean, of course. You guys have to know it's like 10 in the morning, and it's the second day of NAMM. So this is necessary.
It's been such a busy week. My band played every Tuesday before NAMM. My band plays the Baked Potato, which is the really famous jazz club. Yeah. So that's a really late night. And then Wednesday, I played this thing called Soundcheck Live, which is a sort of an all-star band of people playing in L.A. Last night, I played a benefit for Flea's new music school in Watts. Wow. And then, of course, the terrible thing this week, Neil Peart died, so everyone wants me to learn. Everyone wants me to learn Rush songs. And I, with all respect to Geddy Lee and Rush, I just never listened to it growing up. So I just had to spend a lot of nights.
Time to get this
learning the notes, so late nights, but
okay. Still there. Wow. So what are your plans for the next, or how long are you going to be there at NAMM? Like every day?
Every day, yeah. I mean, today I'm playing at the Markbass booth. I have a signature Markbass booth, a Markbass amplifier, which is great.
The new one that just came out?
Yeah, it came out last year. Yeah. It's great. You know, it's sort of Markbass's experiment into the rock world, right? Because most of the people that play Markbass sort of have that post-Jocko nasally tone. When I think of Jeff Berlin, Hadrian Farrow, all those Italian players had that really, you know, mid-rangey Jocko sound.
I know, I just heard him, he played with Marcus yesterday at the Markbass. It was awesome.
That's great. It's sort of one sound. And when you're playing rock, you know, you can't really bring a 4x10 cabinet and a little teeny head to a rock and roll gig. So, and I'm too old to carry an 8x10 Ampeg cabinet. So we developed a cabinet. It's about mid-size. You know, it's big and cool enough looking where it doesn't look like you won't get laughed off the stage bringing a 4x10. And the head has a tube and solid-state style with big lights and big knobs, so it looks cool in rock and roll.
Is it light or is it quite heavy?
Super light, okay, super light. With the new, you know, neodymium speakers and 215s, but with incredible clarity.
Wow.
The Cecchino, the engineer, is great, and Marco DeVigilis, the guys I work with, were fine.
Nice.
And then I play at GHS Strings every day. I've been playing GHS Strings for longer than the current president of the company has been president of the company. 40 whatever years, you know.
How often do you change strings?
You know, it depends. I have, you know, one bass that has dead strings for if I want to sound like James Jameson. I've got a fretless with nylon tape strings that I played the other night.
Like 4-string fretless?
Yeah. But you know, have you seen the nylon tape strings?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really great sound. But if I'm playing solo and I'm doing all, you know, sliding around, it really takes a lot out of it. And there's nothing for me. It's like a new set of sneakers, brand new strings. When I'm playing my solo stuff, they have sustain, they have brightness. If I'm giving a solo performance every time before I play.
Wow. And do you have time to practice when you're so much, or you're traveling?
I have to, I'm not happy unless I'm warmed up and in control. I could, you know, if I ever get to the point in my career where I say, I can just bullshit my way through the gig, then I'll quit and do something else. You know, it's really important for me to do my best because I'm still getting better and I'm still excited to practice and learn. And also just, you know, as you get older, boy, so many people have physical problems and no one really talks enough about stretching and warming up and physical exercises for your body and your neck and your posture. You know, and every time I have a camp with young people, I just try to talk about breathing and yoga and posture and warm-up exercises so that when you get to be 60, everything doesn't break down. You know?
Yeah, that's so important.
No athlete would just, you know, put on their uniform and run out on the pitch and start playing. They warm up for hours or half an hour. It's the same thing. It's a very physical thing. And I really think more attention should be paid, you know, to that aspect of it.
Do you play scales before you?
I love scales, I have about a 15, 20-minute routine that I go through with the metronome.
Oh, nice. Metronome, like 80 or 70?
Well, the funny thing is I'll put it on, and the thing is, what I have to be careful of is making sure you're playing music and not just muscle memory. Like, you know, if I'm playing, right, it's one thing, but if you have the metronome where you're playing, right, if you play it incredibly slow, you can't get away with any bullshit.
Yeah, you are really aware of it, and you.
If you're pushing the note sharp, if you're forgetting, you know, the Moonlight Sonata, I can sort of blow through it because I've played it a million times. But if you play it slowly, you're forced to think about the harmony, about the sustain. It also builds up strength in your fingers. So I'll practice, you know, 90, 100, 80, 110, 70, 120, 60. And it's so hard to play it slowly in time. It's the hardest thing in the world.
Yes, it is.
But if you do that, then you're prepared. You have complete control over the instrument when you go to play live and in time. And circling back, you know, I came from a world where no one really played solo bass. People played some bass solos, right? So I'm still founded in, I love to play bass. And now a lot of people's first introduction to me is me, you know, all this stuff. And it's great. But there are also, you have to treat it as a different genre, solo bass. There are some people who can play all that stuff that also play bass, but I also know plenty of young players that have all these chops. But, you know, you can't play a song or aren't interested in playing, Joe Satriani.
Exactly.
You got to do that forever, and it's fun if you're rocking. And you realize you're holding down the fort, and people are moving their heads to you. Yeah. But people, it's a different aesthetic, and I do worry about some people that are more to the solo thing forget, what the bass is really all about.
But you do both. Like you can.
I try.
And that's very rare. I would say.
Some people can do it.
Yeah, I know, but you're one of the best, in my opinion. Yeah.
I take it seriously, and I practice a lot, and I want to keep getting better.
Yes, I hope to hear a lot of you in the future. So I would say thank you very much for the interview and all the information. If you want to see more things like that, be sure to search for #TONAMM20. There's plenty of stuff there, so NAMM's just crazy, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
And don't forget to go to StuHamm.com, where you can buy my new record, Art Spoke, which is the greatest hits. You can sign up for Skype lessons, have me recording on your demos, and check out the tour dates where my band is coming through Europe in February and March.
When?
February and March. And then I'll be back in Europe in the fall playing with Greg Howe, the great guitar player. So I'll be all over. So check me out on Facebook or Instagram, and come see me and buy my records.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.